Welcome to Diversified, where our mission is to have you living a life filled with wealth, health, and happiness. Today, we have a very special guest, Marni Jameson. Marni is America's most beloved home and lifestyle columnist. Besides writing a weekly nationally syndicated column on all things home, Marni is the author of six best-selling books, soon to be seven, though. Marni's popular syndicated column appears weekly in more than 20 papers nationwide, reaching 5 million readers with her trademark humor and advice. Thanks for joining us, Marni.
What a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What got you into this business?
Oh, I stumbled into it. I've always been a journalist, but in terms of this particular line of books I've been writing, which often have to do with what to do with all your stuff, downsizing, rightsizing, and leaving a good legacy. It was really, the turning point was cleaning out my parents' home in 2013. I had been writing the syndicated home and design column for 10 years at that point. And, how to pick a rug, how to pick paint, those sorts of things. But I was stopped in my tracks. I was like, I walked in the door to clean out my parents' home. They'd moved into assisted living. They were both 89. And I felt like a giant had grabbed my ankles while I was going in quicksand. It was the hardest thing. And, what do you do? And, downsizing and right-sizing and living well, living right. And what do your things mean? And what kind of a burden are you going to leave to your legacy? It's a huge topic, Andrew.
Yeah,
so
massive.
That's kind of what got me going. And I wrote a bunch of columns about it, and I got a bunch of emails, and I told my agent, I think there's a book here, and boom, I wrote Downsizing the Family Home, and that's just, gone gangbusters, and a workbook and subsequent books on that subject. It's just real hot.
So what's the tip? What's the tip, or what should people keep in mind when downsizing? Because we have a lot of clients that go through that. They retire, they downsize to Florida or wherever, and I mean, I know we struggle with it in my house massively, but give some advice there.
So many things to say on that. One thing I would say is it's not a one and done. It's a lifestyle. Okay. Living lighter is an ongoing process. It's a way of looking at your things and a way of living. So, just be who you are today. If you are 70 years old and you have your son's Cub Scout uniform, you have an issue. If you're still hanging on to your Letterman jacket, I hope you're not one of those guys, or your prom corsage and you're 55, move on. So I'm just saying, let go of who you were, make room for who you're becoming, and live beautifully in the now. And I also would say, downsizing is in the title of 3 of my books, but I really don't like the word. I like rightsizing, which is the title of my 7th book, Right Size Today for Your Best Life Tomorrow, because I don't want to live small. I don't want to do without. I want to live beautifully, but I don't want to have too much. So that's one big thought, a philosophical thought. And the other one that's a little less exciting maybe is, I always think about what kind of a mess am I going to leave the next generation? I mean, I think I've got many good years left, but I have kids and I have a blended family of 5 grown children, actually. And I don't want to leave the burden. My parents, God bless them, they just hung on to things, baggies and greeting cards, Christmases from years gone by. I'm like, oh my goodness, don't do that to your kids. So, what is the legacy you're going to leave, and how are you going to leave? Put a bow on your life.
Yeah, and I lived through this even in my life. My dad passed. My mom moved from our family house of 30 years to a condo down the road, and being as the kid, my mom would sit there and say, you want this, or that, with stuff they held on. I said, no, Mom, I don't. So you're right. You're not doing us a service by keep holding on to it. You said something interesting that I want to go back to there, Marni. How do you define too much, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, I like to use this mantra. When you look through your things, do you need it? Do you use it? Do you love it? Need, use, love. Not, but it was expensive, but so-and-so gave it to me, but I wore it to my daughter's graduation. I used all these excuses. Those aren't the reasons to keep things. So if you have 15 spatulas, really, really, do you need 15 spatulas? Maybe they do different things, so you save 2, but kind of pick a number, and that's enough. And the rest can go, even if they're in great shape. Let somebody else use them.
I think that's brilliant. Need, use, love, right?
Works.
Not,
Yeah,
not
works.
had used, had loved,
Might use.
right? Might use, right?
Yeah.
It's totally spot on. Okay, so you've touched on this word a couple, which kind of melds with one of your books, Legacy. So you wrote a book, What to Do with Everything You Own to Leave the Legacy You Want. Oh, what a happenstance.
Just so happened to have.
I was
Yes.
like, oh, look, here's my, I didn't write any books. Who am I kidding? So it's clearly a valuable resource for anyone looking to plan for the future. Give some tips on people who are starting to think about the legacy portion of their life, estate plan and legacy. We do a lot with estate plan. Something I'm really passionate about is thinking about the legacy. But give your findings, your tidbits, your expertise, please.
So first I'll say this wasn't my idea, and most good ones are not. It was a publisher who knew about my downsizing books, and he reached out to my agent and said, do you think Marni would be interested in writing what he called an estate planning book? And I'm like, well, I'm not a financial person. I deal with home design. And he's like, no, it's the ultimate downsizing. Like, downsizing like nobody else. So it's the ultimate. So I think about this, I'm sort of jumping at the end, but this giant funnel. If you had a giant funnel and you dumped everything you have, your cars, your boats, your coffee pots, whatever, everything goes in that funnel. And then it liquidates into meaning. What does that look like? So I guess it was the ultimate downsizing. So I guess the takeaway, the big idea is you probably deal a lot with paper transactions, financials, like here, 50% of the 401k will go to this child, 50% will go to that child, or so, you divvy it up.
Right.
Easy. That's the easy stuff. The hard stuff is the artwork, the furniture, the heirloom headboard, all this stuff. And you're right. The kids don't want your stuff. Can I say that again? The kids don't want your stuff. And if you ask them, do you want it? And they say no, believe them. And if they change their mind down the road, guess what? Your job as a parent is to help your kids learn from their mistakes. So you're all done. Just move on. So think about all your things, the things you have in your life, and how they're going to divest. And so, live in the now. Get rid of stuff. Sell it. Donate it. Throw it away. Give it away. Live with what you need. A. B. Keep the big picture in mind. So I like to think about the meaning. I hate to break this to the people listening, but we are all going to be not here for a lot longer than we are here. Newsflash. So wouldn't it be wonderful to leave a legacy with some meaning? So one of the stories in the book that inspired me, and I hope inspires your listeners, is a woman. She lived in the Ozarks. And she was single, never married, no kids. And all she had in her possession was a house that was worth about $65,000, not a ton. But she left it to the Ozarks Community Foundation in her will and said, use this to help children's scholarships for children who need education. Because she's a teacher, this is her passion. Well, they took that $65,000 and they turned it into $100,000. And that spins off a couple $1,000 scholarships a year into perpetuity. This woman, with her modest means, but with her generous heart and her foresight, was able to help children way, 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 way down the road for generations to come. And we can all do that.
Yeah, and it was where I was going, which is okay. I understand the legacy of your headboards and your watch that was given down through the generations, but to me, it is more about the intangibles. It's the leaving. How can you exist longer than you exist, right? In a weird way. So what has Marni done to establish her legacy? Have you taken?
Well, I haven't done all of that. I do have a trust. I have things in trust, and I have a liquidation plan. And I have two biological daughters and 3 stepkids. And my husband has a trust for his 3 kids. So we are making sure there's no fighting. And then we have a trust that will be for all of them in our joint assets. So we have done put those walls up, if you will, and made things very clear as what happens when we die. And if one party deceases the other, all that's taken care of. So in terms of, I have talked to my kids, and they have a couple, my girls have a couple pieces of jewelry they want, but they're otherwise instructed to liquidate everything. Just fire sale it and put the money into, and I haven't picked my cause yet. I'm thinking of my university where I went to journalism school, which holds a lot of esteem for me because it really set me up. But I haven't fully decided.
It's cool. It's cool. And and what you're saying is something anecdotally I've realized through the years, which is so much of this can be addressed by conversations, by actually addressing it and discussing it. And these aren't taboo topics. We all want a legacy. It's human. And you can really accomplish a lot by discussing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's really a big step.
Super important.
Okay, let me ask you one or two more questions here. So, being you seem to be quite the diverse specialist here, Marni. You also have a specialty in interior design, right? And
it's a passion.
And so, which is awesome. So how do these worlds mesh, right? One is about accumulating and making your house shine. I would think that if you're also in some regards trying to get rid of stuff, how can you make some of your valued, use, love, need formula shine within the design, right? Like is there tricks there that you've done to help meld these specialties, these expertises together?
You're so funny. I've never really thought of them as being in conflict, but when you put it that way, obviously a beautiful home is a well-edited home. And you can't just keep piling on wonderful thing on top of wonderful thing on top of wonderful thing. So, it needs to cohere, it needs to have a sure hand, it needs to have editing. And I do think they can coexist. But yeah, I love stuff and I love to, buy new things and get new clothes. But I also take shopping bags to the Goodwill. And you've got to learn to let go. If you're someone who likes to acquire, you've also got to learn to let go. And I think I'm not a monk, and everyone has a different tolerance for stuff. Sure. And I like my pretty things, but I do like clear counters, and I like the absence of clutter, and I need to have things hygienically clean. So you find your own level and you maintain it, but you can't slough off. I mean, that is sort of the big picture here. You cannot slough off. If you care about how your life looks and how you live, you've got to work at it.
Totally makes sense. Okay, my favorite question to have ask everyone for them to leave us with is, what is, again, you span so many different disciplines that are intertwined, but what do you find is, or what is the message, I guess I would say, that you want people to remember most from this interview today? What's the one tidbit if they take away one thing?
I come back to heart, that I just want you to look at everything with your heart and think about your kids and think about the meaning and think about your legacy, and that less is finally more. When everything is important, nothing is important. So really look at, when I cleaned out my parents' home, I love my parents so much. And I was living in Florida and they're living in California. I couldn't put the marble top dressers in the overhead bin. I just, it's hard, but you have to let go. And if you just save a few precious things, like I have right here, my dad's cigar box, and I have my mom's pearls, the little special things that I can bounce off of, that's enough. I don't need to show my respect for them by saving everything they loved. So I think that I really care about the feelings involved, and for my readers and myself. And I want them to know that I'm coming from caring, but I'm also looking at the big picture. And that is caring. Letting go is caring. Does that make sense?
It does. It's, if I were to rephrase or take, if I were to glean something from that, which I think is brilliant, is I would presume a lot of people equate stuff and material things with legacy, with remembering some. I don't need everything my dad ever owned to remember him. If I have those couple of things, because it's not the things that remind me of, they're triggers, but it's not the things that I get excited about. It's this rock that sits on my table, that was my dad's in his office forever. It's enough that I think about him every day, and that's it. It's all I need. And the memories are here. They're not there, right?
In your heart. And you can repurpose. Let's say your dad was all about his tools and you don't even know a wrench from a screwdriver, but you sold all of his tools.
Who told you, Marni?
Staunch. But what if you sold all his tools and got a really cool coffee table, and then he's in the middle of your house all the time? Yeah. You channel his equity into something that's useful to you and meaningful to you, and you can say, that's the coffee table dad bought us.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Marni, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Tell everyone how and you want them to get in touch with you if they want to follow you, read you, purchase your book. What's the best way for people to connect?
Well, if you're not fortunate enough to live in one of the cities where the newspaper carries my column, then you can get it free on my blog 2 weeks after it appears in the paper at marnijameson.com. That's MARNI Jameson, like the whiskey.com. Subscribe to the blog and you'll get in your inbox every Monday. It's free, my column. And you can also go there and see my books and order my books, or just go straight to your favorite bookstore or Amazon. And there's downsizing books. There's everything, what to do with everything you own. And coming out in January, Right Size Today for Your Best Life Tomorrow.
I love it. Marni Jameson, thank you so much for joining me today. I know our audience will love your message, love listening and watching this. And as always, to everyone watching, please stay wealthy, healthy, and happy, and have a great day.